All right. So, session 4, which is allowing adaptations. So, thank you all for being here. I'm going to go ahead and mute all, but you may use the chat as we have done to answer any questions or engage with Heidi. So, I'm going to go ahead and mute you all. Heidi, you will have to unmute yourself. And thank you again for being here.
All right. We're just going to jump on and go ahead and get started. Thank you all again for coming. Today, we're going to be talking about some adaptations and some helpful tools that can help us get past the difficulties with fine motor that poses on daily activities and the things that we want and need to do. So we talked about the stretches to do with our hands to help them relax and stretch out. We talked about strengthening exercises to help our hands and our fingers be strong. We talked about dexterity and coordination exercises that can help us, just strengthen that aspect of it. And then we talked about some fine motor fun and things that we can do that involve our fine motor to help work on the strengthening that is also enjoyable. So we're working on strengthening and working on helping our hands get stronger and better. However, there are some things that are still really difficult to do. So let's use something to help us make it a little bit less difficult. I always talk about when people ask about when do I know to kind of push through it and do it on my own, and when do I know to use something else or to get some help? And I always kind of say, if it's something that is going to help you, work on your skills, and then you'll be able to continue the rest of your day, like, let's try it. Let's do it. Let's do it the difficult way and work on those skills. But if it's going to wipe you out and make you so tired that you can't do anything the rest of the day, let's use something to help us and make it a little bit easier for us. So I am going to pull the chat up over here. As always, let me know if you have anything, any questions or anything in the chat. So someone asked, can you suggest a group of exercises we can do each day or so, both strengthening and flexibility exercises? Yes, I can. Remind me at the end if I don't talk about that, to talk about that after we finish this here today. So we're going to just go ahead and get started, and I'm going to see, there we go. Okay, so I kind of have just a bunch of things out here, and we're going to talk about all the different tools that I've seen. They're not particularly in any order, and then if there's anything else you have questions about at the end, we'll go ahead and ask it, but we're going to start here. So I know some people have difficulty with brushing their teeth and getting the toothpaste cap off and holding the toothpaste with one hand and the toothbrush with the other hand and doing all of those things. So there are toothpaste dispensers. These are just two different types. Let me see if I can get my little pointer here. Okay, Jen, I'm gonna minimize my chat so I can see more. Will you just let me know if there's any questions I should address right away? Otherwise, we'll get them at the end.
Sure.
Thank you. I want my laser pointer. Okay, so this one over here is like a holder, and it also sanitizes the toothbrushes as you stick them in there, and then you can just pull your toothbrush out. And the toothpaste is stuck in here at the top, and you push your toothbrush on this little thing, and it just squirts some toothpaste on your toothbrush. I will say I have never used these, so I can't vouch for how awesome they are, but they're something that's out there that's a way to help if you need it. This one is kind of the same way. Some of them have particular toothpastes or paste sizes that you need to use with it. Some of them are more generic. So you would just kind of put the toothpaste up here and you push the little button just with your toothbrush. So all you have to hold on to is your toothbrush, and it'll get some toothpaste on there for you so you can go ahead and brush your teeth. Here are some more things to help with fine motor in terms of dressing. So this over here is a button hook, and I don't have mine here today. I wish I did to show you, but basically there's like the little hole in your shirt that the button goes into, and you slide this piece through that hole, and then you hook this piece around your button, and then you just pull it through. And so they're very quite handy. Sometimes people, I mean, everybody's different, right? Sometimes people want to just kind of do it and they think this is hard. Other times this is a lot simpler and a lot easier and goes a lot quicker. So you do still kind of use two hands. I kind of hold the shirt with one hand while I pull this through with the other hand, but it has a wide handle, so it's easier to grasp than managing the little buttons. And you just kind of hook it through there and pull it through, and it is super handy. Over here, we have zipper pulls. So if you have a hard time just like getting the fine motor pinch and that pinch pattern to pull up the zipper, these can be looped around your zipper thing, and then you can kind of grab it with your fingers a little better, or with your whole hand. It just gives more surface area, rather than the little zipper that's close by. It gives you the string that you can kind of hook around and pull, either for jackets or pants or purses or bags or anything that you're zipping and unzipping that's a little bit difficult. These can be hooked to the actual zipper, and so it's super easy modification. You get it in a pack of a bunch of them when you get them. And so those are pretty handy and awesome as well. These are some magnetic clasps. So I know a lot of people are like, well, I can pull the zipper up, but it's really hard to get the zipper in the spot. These are magnetic. And again, with all of these, I haven't actually used these particular ones, but I've seen some like it. So you just bring the two sides together and then it magnetizes, and then this part gets to the point where you can just pull the zipper up from there. So you can attach this, with that hook to help it be easier for both. So when I saw these zippers online, they were like the actual zippers, and you would have to have someone like take your zipper out and sew this zipper in on your jacket. If it's like a jacket that you really like, but you can't do the zipper, or a coat or whatever it may be. They also make adaptive clothing that already has either zippers like this or other type of magnetic closings on that. So that's kind of just dependent upon, do you want to purchase something that's already kind of modified and adapted, or do you want to get these zippers if you know a seamstress or someone who's really good at sewing or taking things apart and sewing zippers in. You can go ahead and do that. So I thought that was pretty handy because I know those are difficult for a lot of people. These are magnetic buttons, or more like snaps, I guess. But the picture was like of a purse. And so say this goes on one side and this goes on the other side. And if it's hard to like push it all the way through, or if it was a button, you can put these here instead, and they kind of magnet together to be a little more sturdy. And then these are jewelry clasps. So you would put them on kind of the same way you would usual jewelry the first time, but then they would stay on there so you can just magnet them shut and open them up. But it looks like nice jewelry if you had, a nice necklace on. So this is just like a clasp, like a regular one that you hook to this type of end of one side of your necklace. And then this end you hook to your actual clasp of the other side of the necklace, and they just pop together and can pop out. So that's that. Well, I send links to the zipper and other resources. I will, and I'll talk about that at the end too. Some of them I have, some of them I don't, but I can tell you where to find them. Most of the things on here today can be found on Amazon. I'm going to be honest, when I'm looking for something new for someone and I'm like, okay, they need help with this, like what type of tool can I look for? Before even going to Google, sometimes I just search in Amazon and see if something pops up, and kind of do research that way, because there's so many different things on there. So a lot of those can, but yeah, we'll talk about that at the end also. Such a hard time sometimes switching my slides. Okay, shoelaces. How many people have a hard time with shoelaces? They can be really tricky. So I was trying to teach my daughter how to tie her shoes the other day. I think I told you guys this last week, but just holding one thing in one way and doing the other thing the other way, there's a lot of coordination, a lot of fine motor in that. So these are 3 different types. There are so many different ways to do adaptive shoelaces. So one, I don't know if we've talked about before, but are using slip-on shoes like Kizik's, or I know Skechers has the Skechers slide-ons. So my Kizik's, like they have laces, but I don't have to lace and unlace them all the time. I can just leave them tied and slip the shoes in and out. So those are super, super handy. Um, I really love them. I want to get more. Another option is getting elastic laces. So they have like, the old school curly Q laces that you can tie in there and they kind of hold them tight enough. These are pretty cool because they are elastic, but they have these little, bumps on them. So that kind of just holds them in place. So you can pull them tighter to like the bumps will go through your hole on your shoes, but it's harder. So you can like pull them tighter, but then they'll stay there. And if you have to loosen them up, you can. But that's kind of one way. Instead of tying, you kind of make them the right size so you can just kind of cinch them a little bit. These are lock laces. So you actually get these things and put them on your typical laces, or they come with laces that you put through your shoes and then you put this on here. But basically, these laces, it could be either way, but usually they're these round ones. So they do come with them now that I'm remembering. And so you lace your shoes like normal, but then instead of tying them, you put each end through this little lock thing. And then you put a tab at the end just to kind of hold it. But where the button is kind of releases it. So you can pull the laces tight and they'll be nice and tight on your feet. And then when you want to get them off, you pinch this piece of the lock lace and then you kind of pull that off to loosen the laces. So you still are using your hands in that. You still do need to bend over if it's hard to reach, but you're not having to deal with the fine motor aspects of it or kind of be leaning down so long while you're tying your shoes. I think these are really cool. I have gotten these for a few people and we lace them up and you put them through the holes and then you can cut them to whatever length you need them and then just put this at the end to kind of hold it in place. But these are really handy. These magnetic laces I have not used before, but I think they look really awesome. So you start to lace your shoes like normal. And then once you get to the second half, as you would lace your lace like through to the other side, you'll start lacing it through this magnet piece. So there's two pieces that have holes. And so you lace each side just to each side rather than going all the way across. And then you can snap the magnet piece together and it kind of holds those laces together. So I think they have different strengths. A lot of these things with laces and magnets, they have different strengths in terms of getting to your shoes and whatnot for like heavily active or just casual wear. But you can kind of see in this picture here how it's separated. And then so the laces are laced between the shoe and those little white pieces. And then when you snap them together, they're kind of one piece and you can walk around and do what you need to do. Having trouble finding the armhole when putting on your jackets. I do have some suggestions. It depends on how you're putting them on. So we might need to talk about that a little bit more. And there's different things to do with that. I have like a dressing stick sometimes people use that you can put your sleeve through one side and then you use the dressing hook to hook it on the other side of your jacket and can kind of bring it around so you can see the hole better and it kind of gets to the right spot. Sometimes I have people, if we're talking about like zip up jackets, zip them up a little bit. And so you can lay it down in front of you and put your arms through kind of like you do a regular shirt and put it over your head and then finish zipping it the rest of the way so that you don't have to go around your back and try to find it. So there are a few things there. And if you have more questions about that, we can chat about it later specifically. Okay. Adaptive utensils. So I know that eating is sometimes a difficult thing also, and there's a bunch of different things that can help. Again, sometimes people find things more cumbersome, sometimes people find things more helpful. So these are wide-handled utensils. They have wide-handled ones that are also weighted, or they have just wide-handled utensils that are not weighted. And it just gives a better grasp, a better grip if holding the utensil is the part that's hard and you can't keep it in your fingers or you're not getting a good grip on it. These wide handles can be really handy. And then the rest of it is like a typical utensil and you would use it the same way. These weighted ones, so like I said, they have large handled ones that are weighted, but if you want something that's more like looks more typical, or if you like want to go out to a restaurant but you don't want to bring a big wide handled utensil, if you bring one of these, it'll look like you're just using the restaurant's utensils. However, you don't want to forget to take them back home with you. But they're weighted, and so the weighted ones can help with the tremors. So if you're having some tremors and it makes it difficult to, get your fork up to your mouth and keep all the food on there appropriately, sometimes weight can help. Not all the time. Also, people have worn like little wrist weights. You can get like those wrap around with wrist weights that people use for like walking or exercising. Some people will use those to try to help calm the tremors while they're trying to do activities and other fine motor tasks. But these weighted utensils can also help some people sometimes. And then this is really cool. It's called Liftwear Steady. You can Google it. It's quite expensive, but it's really neat for people who it you put like the spoon or the fork piece on this handle, and the handle adapts according to your tremor needs. So if you just have like a little bit of a tremor, it kind of adapts that and makes it so the spoon part or the fork part doesn't shake as much. And there's a video on their website where someone's like pretty tremory, kind of like this. But the spoon part is just like barely moving because the handle adjusts the tremor somehow. It looks really cool. So if that is something that is a big problem for you and you want to look into it, you can look into Liftwear Steady. It's pretty neat. Another thing to help with eating can be lip plates. So if you do have a hard time having the strength of like getting the fork into what you need, or especially for like salad or thin things that you really need to push down on, sometimes having a lip around the plate will help, because you can kind of, instead of just push down and hope it comes up, push it against the side and kind of, use that pressure to get what you're trying to get onto the fork. So this one is just like a high sloped rim, kind of like I mean, you can see it here. It's a plate, but it has a rim all the way around the edge. And this one is a curved inner lip. So this one kind of goes out, but then in a little bit to go back out to the top. So this could be good when you're trying to really scoop something and get it in there and not have it come off the edge of the plate. So both of these can be helpful when you have a hard time getting things with your fork by just the standard plate in it. You can kind of push to the side rather than straight down, as I said, and things won't spill off the plate. There's also a rocker knife. So some people have a hard time cutting things and using one hand to hold and one hand to kind of cut, and the back and forth motion might be difficult. So these rocker knives, there's a bunch of different styles and a bunch of different types, but instead of going back and forth or, holding the typical knife the way you do, it has a wider grip and you can really just rock it with one hand. Sometimes you still have to hold it down with the other side, and sometimes you don't, depending on what you're doing. But these are just three different types. So this is the knife and this is a handle, or there's this type of handle, that type of handle. So whatever your grasp pattern works best with, there's different options for this. And it's just a little more helpful to cut your food sometimes. Here are some just in general grip assist handles, universal cuffs, universal handles. There's different names and different styles. So this one on the left is just a handle that you can put multiple things in. So I believe the other side of it has a different shape that you can put something in. And then this one is kind of like the cross X shape. So you could put a pen or a marker, depending on how big it is, in here to kind of widen the handle of what you're trying to write with. Since it does have the slit, you could put a spoon or a fork or a knife or something that's a little wider. Like I said, I think the other side has a different shape, so you can put a variety of things in this handle, and then you can move it from item to item if you just want to carry one handle around with you. If you have a hard time grasping things, especially with little handles. We talked about toothbrushes. You can put your toothbrush in here, just to kind of widen it and get a wider grasp pattern than trying to use those fine motor pinching skills if you need it. These are just foam tubes. I've used these with a lot of people for a lot of different things. You can see it could grasp a hairbrush or a fork or a pen. So they have different sizes depending on, the size of the hole. You can fit different things in it. So again, with your toothbrush, if you need a wider handle to hold on to, if that makes it easier, you can get these, and they come in like long strands, and you just cut them to the length that you need and put it in there. So these are super handy also. And then this is a little cuff. I think they're called like like actual EZ something cuff handles. I don't remember exactly, but it has a loop on both sides and then a handle in the middle. So the loop can go on one side of whatever you're holding. In this case, a toothbrush. The loop can go on the other side. I've seen them used for, I mean, everything you see here, they can be used for. Might not work as well with pens if the loops are pretty big, but that all depends on the kind that you get. But that way it more, so rather than grasping something wider for this one, it just kind of helps hold it to your hand a little better. So if you have a hard time, like you can grasp it, but it's kind of shaky, or it's, not a very strong grasp and you're worried about dropping it, this can kind of wrap around your hand and give you better security while you're holding on to whatever you're trying to use or do there. Let's go ahead to this next one. So these key grips I think are pretty cool. Again, I haven't used them, but it just provides greater surface area on the key. If it's hard to grab the key and have the strength to like put it in there and turn it, it gives more surface area. So kind of like, and a bigger lever, right? So it's not as hard because you're not trying to turn a smaller thing, you're turning a bigger thing. So the force helps with the strength part of it, and the wider piece helps with the grasping of it. So I know we talked about that key pinch before. So it's the same thing. It just kind of gives more variety of where we're able to hold it to help out with that. And your key still fits on your key ring and everything there. So some people were asking about typing or using your phone and that being hard. These work for some people, not helpful for others. You can kind of cuff them on your hands and they have a little point. So you would just kind of type, one thing at a time, especially if you have a hard time controlling your fingers. And if you go to type, but other fingers are bumping the keys as you're trying to reach. I know that that's a big problem with some people. Their hand is here and they're trying to reach with this finger, but then this one is bumping a key over here. So this kind of helps keep your hands up and away from it. And just one piece is going to that keyboard at a time. This one also wraps around the hand and goes down to the finger, but I've also seen someone use it where it just kind of is a little Velcro piece that hooks to their finger. And then it has a little piece at the end. And you can also get ones that are like styluses. And so the one that I saw someone use that Velcro around the finger, she would use it for her phone. And so it gives a little bit more flexibility, as to where you are, touching and typing your phone. Again, if you have a hard time controlling your exact fingers, or other ones are getting in the way, or you can't see when your hand is that close, you kind of just put this thing that sticks out a little bit and can use that on your phone or to type on a keyboard. So they can be pretty handy also. These here are helping with sewing or threading needles or holding fabric. So I thought these were really neat. These, I'll admit, is something that I was looking up last night and I was like, that's really cool. I have to show them. So this one works kind of like the button hook. So you slide a needle over this and it's flexible. So it kind of like squishes down and the needle goes on, but then it widens back up. And so it's a bigger hole than our needle. And you can put the piece of thread through there. And then as you pull the needle off of this, the thread goes through the needle. I thought it was really handy. So if you like to do things with threading and needles, like I was talking about last week, how my dad was fishing and was having a hard time with his fishing wire. I wonder if this would work with a fish hook. I don't know. We'll have to test it out. But it has a little bit of a wider handle. And I think you can make these pieces go in and out by pushing these buttons and pulling them in. So this side is just like a standard. This is for like unstitching things. I think I'm not a sewer, so don't judge me on my terminology. But then this side is to help with threading the needle. So it's kind of all in one tool, which I thought was really cool. This one I saw videos on. It's not as easy to see in the image, but you kind of clip it. So this is like the sewing machine, and here's the needle, and you would clip it over that, and then you can hook the string or the thread through something here that's easier to get to than a teeny tiny needle. And then same thing, then you kind of just unhook it and it pulls the thread through. Again, you kind of have to see the video, but it's really cool. So this is just to show that there are things out there. So instead of so this one you would put the thread through this hole. It's a bigger hole than a needle, but it's still a hole. This one is kind of like a hook, and you put it through here and then do something. So you're like wrapping it rather than trying to go through a particular hole, which is really neat. And then these here kind of help hold fabric. So these ones are magnetic. And so they're magnetic here and they go around in the other side. So what I saw this advertised for is when people what were they doing? Where you're like embroidering things kind of. You have like the circle and your fabric is over there. And then these are placed around the outsides to kind of hold the fabric in place while you're working. So anytime you need fabric held in place, but something, like not around a table because it won't magnetize all the way through the table probably, but thin things that you're doing, you kind of stick one magnet, wrap it around and stick another one, and it'll hold it in a place. And then these down here are, they're not magnetized, but they kind of just they're made in a way. So maybe you could hook it around a table or a board or something, and it'll kind of hold the edge of the fabric where you want it rather than it moving around. Because we only have so many hands, right? This is helpful even if we don't have fine motor problems sometimes, because we need more hands to get things done. So that helps with that. Looking at knitting and crocheting, there's a few options. Maybe you've seen, maybe you haven't. This one is kind of hard to see in the picture, but this is like a wire ring that goes around one of your fingers. But then there's a loop and a hole here. And then I think there's one on the other side also. And you put your yarn through this and it just kind of holds it a little better. So it's going like past her finger being held tight rather than her holding it between two other fingers. So it just kind of like the magnet thing's giving you a third hand. It kind of just is an extra device to hold something a little tighter so you're not having to do as many things with your fingers or hold as many things at once. So that could be helpful. These are little stoppers that you put on the end of the needles so that the yarn doesn't slide off of it while you're working, or if you're doing something and moving and you don't want it to come off. Yeah. I'm sure if you are a knitter, you've seen these before, but those could be helpful. And then these are looms. So if someone has a hard time holding the two knitting needles and, doing the knitting and you want to try doing it another way, you kind of wrap the yarn around each peg. I've used one of these before. It's kind of cool. So you wrap the yarn around each peg and then you use these hooks to take the piece off the peg pretty much. But in doing that, it does whatever you need to do to create something awesome. So there's different shapes and sizes depending on what you're making. Again, with these hooks, if they're hard to grasp because they're so skinny and small, you can use one of those things we talked about earlier to put on the handle to make it wider so that can still be helpful. So instead of holding two needles and the material and doing all those things, you kind of just hold the yarn and you wrap it around, and then you hold the hook and you hook them around, and then you would do it again and wrap the yarn and then hook it around. So just some different options to help with those tasks and activities. These are jar openers. So these are another thing that's kind of helpful for anyone, but these are just silicone, little circle things that are grippy that you put on the jar and help give it a little more grasp to help open it. This is one of those like super universal ones that it can do anything, and you can open this type of cap or this type of can or this type of cap. So there's like different hooks and things in there. It's called Magic Opener for bottles and cans. So yeah, cans is a good one, and like soda cans too, to get your fingers in there. So this has a hook that kind of just goes up there and does that. And then I've seen these also, these different types of openers is just dependent on what you need. When I have a hard time opening a jar, I find these sufficient enough to where I hold one side and kind of grasp it and turn it. I have a little bit of a harder time with these. They have different sizes for the different size can or bottle you're using, but if you have a jar that's big and you need to get it to this back one, you do have to pull the front end apart wide enough to do that, which you can, it does. But you kind of have to have the strength to be able to do that. And I was with someone the other day and she was trying to use this and she's like had the jar on her lap because she was on her scooter and trying to get it in the position to do it. And it was kind of tricky, but I've also used these and it's really cool because it gives this wider handle and kind of that longer lever arm again to get that momentum to push it. So once you do get your cap or your bottle or can in between this hole, you have this whole surface area to grab onto to then turn it. So they're pretty cool. This picture is actually a kit that all comes together. So you get this, and I think this is a can opener, and this square is one of those silicone things. So you can buy them in groups to kind of help with those things. I'm going to take a look at the chat real quick. The round silicone jar openers, you can stick them on your kitchen window over the sink. Smart. I've never tried that. I could see how that would work. So that's pretty cool. Someone said they put the jar opener pads under the dishes to stop them from moving when cutting food. That is very smart. So silicone mats and pads can be used for so many different things. I used one once. It was supposed to be a placemat that was silicone so that when you do put your plate down and you're trying to eat, it doesn't slide around, especially if you are like using a lip plate and you want to be kind of pushing against the edge of the plate to get things on your fork. Having a mat underneath it helps keep it where you want it. But it was supposed to be used for that, and we ended up folding it and putting it on the floor and having someone use it to get their compression stocking in the right spot because they would pull it up, but it wouldn't go quite all the way up. And she needed to adjust it, but she couldn't reach all the way down to get to it. So we put that there to kind of give that traction. So they're super handy. A strap wrench is helpful for jars and bottles. Cool. So awesome. Let's see. Every time I click the chat, then it makes it hard for me to switch my slides. Okay. So this is the end of those things that I have to show. So this, since Jen is going to send this out, I just wanted to kind of put this on the slide so you guys would have my contact information here. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions. I'd be more than happy to help. Heidi at ascentherapypnw.com is my email. And then this is the traditional website. I have two websites. They're pretty much the same, but this one here talks more about therapy services. And then weagewithpurpose.com is more of the online helpful tools. You can get to weagewithpurpose.com from Ascent Therapy PNW, but if you want to just remember something, weagewithpurpose.com is easier to remember. So I have some handouts already on my website with helpful tools and where to get them and what they are. They're not specifically for fine motor. I will create a handout with some links to some of the ones on this this presentation for Jen to send to you guys in the post-event email, so you'll have those. But if you want more, I do have an ebook. It's called Tools for Independence, and it is filled with just a bunch of different pieces of adaptive equipment and tools that are helpful, and it shows when you might want them and why you might need them and how to use them. And some of them have links to videos with how to use them, but they all have links for where to find them and where to get them. I will admit a lot of the links that are in it are for Amazon, but it also tells at the bottom of the page different stores that you could go to find it and buy it if you didn't want to get it online and you were going out to the stores. So if you want that, it is on for sale on my website. But if you use the code APDA when you're checking out, if you do want to look into that, you get 50% off. And I do want to say not all the things we talked about today for the fine motor. There is a fine motor section in it, but not all the things we talked about are in it, but I am working on updating it and creating another one. But if you do go ahead and purchase one now, when I do update it, whoever got the first one is going to get the new one. So if you're interested, that's there. But I will also give Jen a handout with links to some of the things we talked about today. But I want to know now, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. What are some things that we didn't mention that either are tools that you have found really helpful, that you've used, that you feel like we should share so we're all in this together and helping each other? Or what is another activity maybe I didn't mention that we can try to problem solve together while we're here today? So let me know, let us know in the chat anything you're thinking. I wanted to have some time to kind of go through if there wasn't something and we can search for it together. So if there's anything that you are kind of struggling with and you're like, is there something that can help with that? I mean, probably there is. If not, maybe we can think of a way to make something together. Or did we solve all of our problems here today
Well,
and
we're
we
gonna go
have
over like
nothing else to
rewriting.
search for?
We're gonna go over that sheet from last week, the PDF with the
Yes.
the lines and
Yes,
handwriting.
and what to do for each of those
Yeah.
lines. We will do that. Thank you for reminding me. Let me oh yeah, picking up single sheets of paper. Um so one thing that could be helpful for that is just, I mean, those little like rubber things you can kind of put over a finger to give more grip or traction. And then it just kind of, if you pinch it, it'll be grippier and kind of bend, and then you can pick up the paper better. So I would recommend doing that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let me know.
They're
But
called finger cots.
they're called finger what?
Cots, C-O-T-S.
COTS, finger cots. I'm going to put that in the chat just so we can see it. Thank you. Yeah, it just gives a little bit of traction on there to help kind of scoop that up. I am going to, while you guys are asking me any other questions, I'm going to pull up my handout.
And I also had another thought as you were talking, Heidi. In the last workshop that was hands-on helpful caregiving, you did a broader adaptation presentation, and we have a video for that, so I will send that
Okay.
out also in your post-event
Perfect.
email. So it went over kind of some of the gross motor skills that you might need adaptations for,
Awesome.
including like putting jackets on, and you did this super cool thing for compression stockings that
Oh,
I had
yes.
never seen. It just blew my mind. So
Cool.
so I will send that out to you guys in your post-event email. You're gonna have a lot of things in
Awesome.
there. So
It'll be a big email, but it'll be a lot of helpful things. So I think I did the button hook in that one too. So some of the things we talked about today, I did demonstrate in that session. Only
Heidi,
clicking
If you
with
if you're
yeah.
talking about gross motions, also gross motor skills, getting in and out of the car is one of them, and there's a type of seat that you can get that's almost like a lazy Susan, so that when you sit down, you revolve into position.
Mm-hmm. I have seen that, and I think it's pretty cool. I want to look more into it and see about like the locking system or how is it gonna not spin around like while you're driving. But I mean, I'm sure they've thought of that, right? So that's something that I haven't used. Have you used it?
No, I haven't, but I've
Okay.
seen it, and
Yeah, I've
I
seen it
thought,
and it looks pretty cool. So I always recommend getting into a car to kind of get up close and, sit your bum down first and then swiveling in. So if you have a hard time getting the legs up and turning across that seat, there is a seat there that helps. There's also a car handle that it had like a little hook with a handle
yeah.
on it, and then you hook it in the door jamb. So like you open up the car and there's the little metal piece and you hook it in, and that just gives another thing to hold on to while you're pushing out or getting in or moving or sliding around.
It's a little awkward when you try and actually use it.
It is. But also, so I know a lot of people who try using like the thing overhead in the door, and they're trying to get out, but their arm is stuck back there, so that's kind of awkward too. So it just gives another option to go, but that is very person dependent also if it's helpful or not. Yeah.
And I think you showed a video of that in that other workshop. You showed like a short video of demonstrating that. So
Yes,
that will be in
yes,
that
I
video.
did.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Also for the car, like if you don't have the seat that spins you and you have a hard time, you know, kind of shifting your weight to spin, if you just kind of remember to lean to one side while you scoot the other side forward and then kind of lean to the other side and weight shift is helpful also. Clicking the mouse, only mouse clicking with left button. Like instead of clicking like both, is that kind of what we're saying there? Pens and pencils make writing
Well, I'm
easier.
thinking for myself on my mouse, so I often click the right button accidentally with one of my other fingers.
With one of your other
And
fingers.
on the
Okay.
Mac, I found a utility called Steer Mouse that turns off the other button.
Oh, well, that's
That's why I was
cool.
asking if it's Mac or Windows. I don't know for Windows, but on Mac, it's called Steer Mouse, STEERMOUSE.
Steer mouse. So steer mouse will
Options for the
on the
mouse.
Mac. That's on the Mac.
That's on the Mac, and that'll let you
Okay.
turn off the right button. So
The
you don't
right
click it.
right click button. That's
There's
really
also
cool.
a product called Steady Mouse that I've heard a couple people use before. And I think that helps with if you tremor a lot when you're using your mouse. It's a steady mouse. I don't know if it helps with the buttons, but I've heard people have some success with that.
Cool. I love learning about new things. Adaptive equipment and helpful tools is my favorite. Okay, I am going to pull up my handout. And so Jen, did you email out that handwriting handout before? Some people said they got it and some said they didn't. So I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Okay,
Did
that's
people
okay.
get it? Folks who are on here, did you get the handout with the tracing? I might have gotten it a little late. Yeah, I'm seeing some
Yeah.
nods that people did get it. I mean,
Okay.
I will include it again in the
Okay.
your fourth and final epic email. But I will include it again, but definitely show it to us. Yeah.
Okay, I am trying to remember where I saved it on here. So we're just going to go to where I created it. Okay, and then I will see if I can figure out how to share my screen again. Okay, Zoom meeting, share screen. We're going to go this one. Okay. Can you guys see this? Perfect. So I created this just to kind of have a variety of different motions and movements. So with writing with a pen, so there are pens that are just wider, that typically the most difficult part of the pen is just because it's so narrow and skinny to hold on to. I don't know if they make weighted, I mean, some pens are heavier than others, right? But if they like make specifically weighted pens, if they don't, they should. That'd be really cool. But if you do have a hard time with tremors, sometimes a heavier pen might be helpful. Or like I said, using the wrist weights can kind of just calm things down. But if you
They
have,
do have weighted pens.
they do, cool,
Yes.
cool. See, they should.
Yeah, I'm not holding one up. You might be able to see it. But that's a weighted wider pen.
Okay, yeah, that is a cool one. So okay. And do you find it helpful?
Yeah, much better.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, see, there's so many things out there, but just people don't know that they exist. So that's why I love doing this and just sharing information about what's available. So now I can look for that pen and add it to my ebook.
There you go.
So that can be helpful. So just finding the right pen that works for you, or finding, like I said, one of those other things to stick your pen in, and kind of make it wider. But so this, where it says fine motor control practice repetition is key, technically is like made out of dots, so you could trace it just to kind of add extra handwriting practice. They're bigger letters to work on larger movements, but following a pattern. Then we have these zigzags, so the straight lines, but the up and down motion and the diagonal motion. So we'll practice going through those. Then we have the up, over, down, just to kind of, so we just trace these dots, trace the lines is pretty much what the purpose is here. And try to, I was trying to give a variety of the different types of strokes that we do. Here we go up and down and kind of do the bunny hop thing. So practicing our curves, but they're, bigger. And I know that you guys don't write this big, but practicing this big is good because oftentimes we write really, really, really small. And so we want it to get bigger. That's what I did with these O's, kind of the big and the small back and forth. I mean, the small is still bigger, I'm sure, than you would typically write if you were writing a note, but to practice the different sizes of moving, your hand and your fingers. The stars and the hearts are just other shapes to trace. So here where I have the X's and these lines, this is for you to practice signing your name. So if you were going to do your signature and sign something, let's just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 repetitions of that on those lines. I would recommend trying to, fill the space, write it big, just to practice again those big
And
motions.
that's where I failed, if you can see my.
Yeah.
It got smaller and smaller as I went.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's why we want to have this handout. So as you're writing, you can see that happening too. And it could be a combination of focusing at first, and then as you get more comfortable, you go on, it gets smaller. Or it could be a matter of the hand fatiguing and getting tired and getting smaller. But I mean, that's why we practice, because it makes us focus on those larger movements, and we're able to kind of see when it changes and what's going on there. And then I have two like sections down at the bottom. So like the red line is the top, the dotted line is the middle, the red line is the bottom, and then the same thing. And so this is just to write whatever sentence you want. I love APDA, or the sun is coming out today. Pick something. But try to fill those spaces. So, capital letters go all the way between the red lines, right? The blue line's the middle. Lowercase letters, you stay between the blue line and the bottom red line, unless you're doing, like a B and you go all the way down. Like we learned how to write when we were in elementary school with the lines, right? But by practicing with those lines, forces us to write a little bit bigger, forces us to have a guide of what to go to. So I was hoping that this handout is something that you can kind of print multiple copies of or do over time or come back to and practice, because it kind of has all the different movements in there, all the different motions in there, all the different aspects we want to think about, signing our name, and then just writing a sentence to really focus on practicing those things. So going back to, are there certain exercises to do on a weekly basis? Do you remember, Jen, after the first week, I sent out a handout with exercises, right? Did I?
I believe you did.
I'll look back at that. And then I think the second week I didn't, because it was hard to show in pictures. But I will probably do some videos on those. I mean, you have the replay, right? But if you don't want to like watch the whole hour and just remember the different things, I'll be making some videos and adding those to. I have a YouTube channel. I think it's Aging with Independence on there if you want to search for that, or it's on my website. But I do have some different videos with exercises, and I would just pick, like 5 of the dexterity ones and 5 of the strengthening ones that you like that we did, and kind of do them on a regular basis. I always have people, have a calendar with like check boxes. Let's say you want to do hand exercises, short increments, like 3 times a day, but maybe only 5 to 10 minutes, right? I put like 3 check boxes in each day of the calendar so we can check those off as we go along, just as like an accountability thing. I do a lot better with exercising when I have accountability, or really doing anything. Like if I have a checklist to check off, or like a star chart and I want to put a star on, I'm trying to, I don't know if you guys have Apple Watches, but they have like the rings for different aspects of exercising. So for the month of June, I'm trying to close all my rings, but it's like a visual thing, and it buzzes and reminds me when I don't do it. You can set up, like if you have a Google Home or Alexa or something, set it up so that they'll remind you to do your exercises. Like say, hey, at this time and this time, remind me to do my exercises. And then you can go to those handouts that we have or that I've made. And if I'll make sure that they're all on there, but I'll probably make another one too. Just to remind us the different things, the different exercises to do. Any further questions, comments? Let me stop sharing my screen. Any questions about this handout before I stop sharing my screen? Oh, hold on. I'm not even looking at the chat. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. I think this is a sentence we typed in typing class and hit all the keys. Smart. You can write that in those squares. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. Now I'm going to have to see if that hits all the keys. That's really clever. Okay, how do I stop sharing my screen? Okay. We're back
So
to
Heidi,
normal.
I
Yeah.
will you and I will link up this week and talk about what I should include in the email. We'll make sure everybody has the resources they need. I also, it struck me too, I have a couple of sort of catalogs and links to catalogs for like medical and adaptive equipment suppliers that I find it easier to like look at and be like, oh, that's what that's for versus I'm on Amazon going, what am I searching for?
I
I'm
don't
not
know
sure.
what to search for. Yeah.
Right. And that's how your book will help as well. But I will
I was
send
gonna
out
say
links to
that's
those.
what I like about Tools for Independence, because you can search through and it goes by category with like in the bathroom or showering or dressing. So you can more think of, okay, this task is hard, and then it shows what can be done to help versus trying to search for something that you don't even know what you're looking for because you don't know that it exists. So yeah, awesome. Cool. Any other
Anything
questions?
else from the audience here?
It's been fun. Thanks for hanging out with me the past 4 weeks. I need to remember to do my finger exercises too.
Thank
You
you.
missed it last week, Jen. We played a game.